Contents of Jeremiah. The material is arranged not in chronological but according to subject matter. Thus, the account makes many changes as to time and surrounding circumstances. Finally, the desolation of Jerusalem and Judah is described in stark detail in chapter 52. This not only shows the fulfillment of much of the prophecy but also provides the setting for the book of Lamentation, which follows. Jehovah commissioned Jeremiah, chapter 1 through 19. It is because Jeremiah wanted to be a prophet or because he came from a priestly family that he is commissioned? Jehovah himself explains, "Before I was forming you in the belly I knew you, and before you proceeded to come forth from the womb I sanctified you. Prophet to the nations I made you." It is an assignment from Jehovah. Is Jeremiah willing to go? In humility he offers the excuse, "I am but a boy." Jehovah reassures him, "Here I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have commissioned you this day to be over the nations and over the kingdoms, in order to uproot and to pull down and to destroy and to tear down, to build and to plant." Jeremiah must not be afraid. There will be certain they will be certain to fight against you, but they will not prevail against you, for I am with you, is the utterance of Jehovah to deliver you. Chapter 1, verse 5, 6, 9, 10, 19. Jerusalem, an unfaithful wife. Chapter 2 through chapter 6, verse 30. What message does the word of Jehovah bring to Jeremiah? Jerusalem has forgotten her first love. She has left Jehovah, the source of living waters, and prostituted herself with strange gods. From a choice red vine, she has been changed into the degenerate shoots of a foreign vine. 221. Her skirts have been bloodied with the souls of the poor innocent ones. Even prostitute Israel has proved more righteous than Judah. God calls on those renegade sons to return because he is their husbandly owner. But they have been as a treacherous wife. They may return if they will take away their disgusting things and circumcise their hearts. Raise a signal towards Zion, for Jehovah will bring a calamity from the north. 4 6. Crash upon crash, as a lion out of his thicket, as a searing wind through the wilderness, with chariots like a storm wind. So will Jehovah's executioner come. Go roving through Jerusalem. What do you see? Only transgressions and unfaithfulness. The people have denied Jehovah, and his word in Jeremiah's mouth must become a fire to devour them, like pieces of wood, just as they have left Jehovah to serve a foreign god. So he will make them serve strangers in a foreign land. Stubborn ones. They have eyes but cannot see, and ears but cannot hear. How horrible. Prophets and priests actually prophesy in falsehood, and my own people have loved it that way, says Jehovah. 531. Calamity approaches from the north, yet from the least one of them, even to the greatest one of them, everyone is making for himself unjust gain. They are saying, there is peace, when there is no peace. 6:13 and 14. But suddenly the despoiler will come. Jehovah has made Jeremiah a metal tester among them. But there is nothing but dross and rejected silver. They are entirely bad. Warning that temple is no protection. Chapter 7 to chapter 10, verse 25. The word of Jehovah comes to Jeremiah, and he is to make proclamation at the temple gate. Hear him as he cries out to those entering in. You are bragging about the temple of Jehovah, but what are you doing? Oppressing the fatherless and widow, shedding innocent blood, walking after other gods, stealing, murdering, committing adultery, swearing falsely, and making sacrifices to Baal? Hypocrites! You have made Jehovah's house a mere cave of robbers. Recall what Jehovah did to Shiloh. He will do the same to your house, O Judah, and he will throw you out, just as he threw out Israel, to the north. 7, verse 4 to 11, 1 Samuel 2, verse 12 to 14, for chapter 3, verse 11 to 14, chapter 4, verse 12 to 22. Judas past praying for. Why the people are even making cakes to sacrifice to the Queen of the Heavens. Truly, this is the nation whose people have not obeyed the voice of Jehovah, its God, and have not taken discipline. Faithfulness has perished. 7, verse 18 28. Judah has set disgusting things in Jehovah's house and has burned her sons and daughters on the high places of Topheth and the valley of Hinnom. Look, it would be called the Valley of the Killing, and their dead bodies will become food for fowl and beast. 732. Rejoicing and exultation must cease out of Judah and Jerusalem. They were hoping for peace and healing, but look, terror, scattering, extermination, and lamentation will result from their stubbornness. Jehovah is the living God and the King to time indefinite. As for the gods that did not make the heavens and the earth, there is no spirit in them. They are a vanity and a work of mockery, and they will perish. 10 through 15. Jehovah will sling out the inhabitants of the earth. Listen, a great pounding from the land of the north. That is too desolate the cities of Judah. The prophet acknowledges it is not an earthly man to direct his course, and he prays for correction, that he may not be reduced to nothing. 10:23. The covenant breakers cursed. Chapter 11 to chapter 12, verse 17. Judah has disobeyed the words of his covenant with Jehovah. It is useless for the people to call for aid. Jeremiah must not pray for Judah, for Jehovah has set a fire blazing against this once luxuriant olive tree. 11:16. As Jeremiah's fellow citizens of Anathoth conspire to destroy him, the prophet turns to Jehovah for strength and help. Jehovah promises vengeance on Anathoth. Jeremiah asks, why is it the way of the wicked has succeeded? Jehovah assures him, I will uproot and destroy the disobedient nation. 12, verse 1 and 17. Jerusalem irreformable and doomed. Chapter 13 to chapter 15, verse 21. Jeremiah recounts how Jehovah commanded him to put a linen belt on his hips and then to hide it in a crag by the Euphrates. When Jeremiah came to dig it up, it had been ruined. It was not fit for anything. Thus Jehovah illustrated his determination to bring to ruin the pride of Judah and the abundant pride of Jerusalem. 13:7 and 9. He will dash them together with their drunkenness like large jars filled with wine. Can a Cushite change his skin, or a leopard its spots? 13:23. Just as Jerusalem is irreformable, Jeremiah must not pray for these people. Even if Moses and Samuel came before Jehovah to intercede for them, he would not listen, for he has determined to devote Jerusalem to destruction. Jehovah strengthened Jeremiah against his reproachers. Jeremiah finds and eats Jehovah's words, resulting in exultation and rejoicing of heart. 15:16. It is time not for idle joking, but for trusting in Jehovah, who has promised to make Jeremiah a fortified copper wall against the people. Jehovah will send fishers and hunters. 16 to chapter 17, verse 27. In view of the impending desolation, Jehovah commands Jeremiah, you must not take for yourself a wife, and you must not come to have sons and daughters in this place. 16:2. It is time neither to mourn nor to banquet with the people, for Jehovah is about to hurl them out of the land. Then Jehovah also promises to send fishers to fish and then them and hunters to hunt them. By his accomplishing all of this, they will have to know that his name is Jehovah. 16:16 and 21. The sin of Judah is engraved on the hearts of the people with an iron stylus, yes, with a diamond point. The art is more treacherous than anything else and it is desperate. But Jehovah can search the heart. None can deceive him. Those apostatizing have left the source of living waters, Jehovah. 17:19 and 13. If Judah will not sanctify the Sabbath day, Jehovah will devour her gates and towers with fire. The potter and the clay. 18 and 19, verse 15. Jehovah commands Jeremiah to go down to the potter's house. There he observes how the potter turns back a spoiled vessel of clay, making it into another vessel as he pleases. Jehovah then declares himself to be the potter to the house of Israel, with the power to pull down or to build up. Next he tells Jeremiah to take a potter's flask to the valley of Hinnom, and there pronounce calamity from Jehovah, because the people have filled the place with innocent blood, burning their sons in the fire as whole burnt offerings to Baal. Jeremiah must then break the flask in symbol of Jehovah's breaking Jerusalem and the people of Judah. No quitting under persecution. Chapter 20. Irritated by Jeremiah's bold preaching. The temple commissioner's pastor puts Jeremiah in stocks for a night. On his release, Jeremiah foretells Pastor's captivity and death in Babylon. Grieved by the derision and reproach leveled against him, Jeremiah contemplates quitting. However, he cannot keep silent. The word of Jehovah comes to be in his heart like a burning fire shut up in his bones, that he is compelled to speak. Though cursing the day of his birth, he cries out, "Sing to Jehovah, you people. Praise Jehovah, for he has delivered the souls of the poor ones of the hand of evildoers." 20, verse 19 and 13. Jehovah's indignation against the rulers. 21, chapter 22, verse 30. In answer to the inquiry from Zedekiah, Jeremiah notifies him of Jehovah's rage against the city. The king of Babylon will lay siege against it, and it will be destroyed by pestilence, sword, famine, and fire. Shalom, Jehoahaz, will die in exile. Jehoiakim will have the burial of Ahaz, and his son Coniah. Jehoiachin will be hurled out of Judah to die in Babylon. Hope in a righteous sprout. 23 to 24, chapter 10. Jehovah promises real shepherds to replace the false shepherds and a righteous sprout out of the stock of David. A king who will certainly reign and act with discretion and execute justice and righteousness in the land. His name? He will be called Jehovah is our righteousness. He will gather the dispersed remnant. 23, 5 and 6. If the prophets had stood in Jehovah's intimate group, they would have caused the people to hear and turn back from their bad way. Instead, says Jehovah, they cause my people to wander about because of their falsehoods. 23, 22, and 32. Look, two baskets of figs. Jeremiah uses the good and the bad figs to illustrate a faithful remnant returning to their land in God's favor, and another class coming to a calamitous finish. 24, verse 1, 5, 8 through 10. Jehovah's controversy with the nations. Chapter 25, 1 to 38. This chapter is a summary of the judgments that appear in greater detail in chapters 45 to 49. By three parallel prophecies, Jehovah now pronounces calamity for all the nations on earth. First, Nebuchadnezzar is identified as Jehovah's servant to devastate Judah and the surrounding nations, and these nations will have to serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Then it will be Babylon's turn, and she will become desolate. She will become desolate waste to time indefinite. 25, 1 to 14. The secondary prophecy is the vision of the cup of the wine of Jehovah's rage. Jeremiah must take this cup to the nations, and they must drink and shake back and forth and act like crazed men because of Jehovah's destruction coming against them. First to Jerusalem and Judah, then on to Egypt, back to Philistia, across to Edom, up to Tyre, to the lands near and far, and to all the other kingdoms of the earth that are on the surface of the ground, and the king of Shishak himself will drink after them. They shall drink and puke and fall, none will be spared. 25, 15 to 29. In the third prophecy, Jeremiah rises to magnificent poetic heights. From on high, Jehovah himself will roar against all the inhabitants to the earth, a noise, a calamity, a great tempest, and those slain by Jehovah will certainly come to be in that day from one end of the earth clear to the other end of the earth. No lamenting, no funerals, they will be as manure on the ground. The false shepherds will be slaughtered, along with the majestic ones of their flock. There is no escape for them. Listen to their howling. Jehovah himself is despoiling their pasturage because of his burning anger. 25, 30 to 38. Jehovah vindicated. Jeremiah vindicated. 26 to chapter 28, 17. The rulers and people conspire to put Jeremiah to death. Jeremiah makes his defense. It is the word of Jehovah that he has spoken. If they kill him, they will kill an innocent man. The verdict, not guilty. The older men introduced the precedents of the prophet Micah and Uriah. In discussing Jeremiah's case, Jehovah next commands Jeremiah to make bands and yokes, put them on his neck, and then send them to the nations round about as symbols that they must serve the king of Babylon for 3 generations or rulers. Hananiah, one of the false prophets, opposes Jeremiah. He declares that the yoke of Babylon will be broken within 2 years and pictures this by breaking the wooden yoke. Jehovah underlines his prophecy by having Jeremiah make iron yokes and foretells that Hananiah must die that year. Hananiah dies. Comfort for the exiles in Babylon. 29 to 31:40. Jeremiah writes to the exiles taken to Babylon with Jeconiah, Jehoiakim. Settle down there, for before Jehovah brings you back, there is coming a period of 70 years of exile. Jehovah commands Jeremiah to write to their return in a book. Jehovah will break their yoke, and they will certainly serve Jehovah their God and David their king, whom I, Jehovah, will raise up for them. 39, 30 and 9. Rachel must hold her voice back from weeping, for her sons will certainly return from the land of the enemy. 31:16. And now a reassuring declaration by Jehovah. He will conclude with the house of Judah and Israel a new covenant, for grander this than the covenant that they have broken. Jehovah will write his law deep down inside on their hearts, and I will become their God, and they themselves will become my people. From the least to the greatest, all will know Jehovah, and he will forgive their error. 31 to 34. Their city will be rebuilt as something holy to Jehovah. Jehovah's covenant with David, sure. 32 to chapter 34, verse 22. During Nebuchadnezzar's final siege of Jerusalem, Jeremiah is under restraint. However, as a sign that Jeremiah will certainly restore Israel, Jeremiah buys a field in Anathoth and puts the deeds aside in an earthenware vessel. The word of Jehovah now brings good news. Judah and Jerusalem will rejoice again, and Jehovah will fulfill his covenant with David. But you, O Zedekiah, be warned that the king of Babylon will burn this city with fire, and you yourself will go in captivity to Babylon. Woe to the slave owners who agree to free their slaves, but who have violated their covenant. Jehovah promised to recap 35, chapter 35. In the days of Jehoiakim, Jehovah sends Jeremiah to the Rechabites. These took refuge in Jerusalem at the first approach of the Babylonians. Jeremiah offers them wine to drink. They refuse it because of the command of their forefather Jehonadab, Jonadab, given over 250 years earlier, a striking contrast indeed to the unfaithful course of Judah. Jehovah promises them there will not be cut off from Jonadab the son of Rechab a man to stand before me always. 35:19. Jeremiah rewrites the book. Chapter 36. Jehovah orders Jeremiah to write down all the words of his prophecies to date. Jeremiah dictates these to Barak, who then reads them aloud in the house of Jehovah on the fast day. King Jehoiakim sends for the roll, and on hearing a part, angrily tears it up and pitches it into the fire. He commands the arrest of Jeremiah and Barak, but Jehovah conceals them and tells Jeremiah to write a duplicate roll. Jerusalem's last days, 31 39 18. The record returns to the reign of Zedekiah. The king asked Jeremiah to pray to Jehovah on Judah's behalf. The prophet refuses, saying Jerusalem's doom is certain. Jeremiah attempts to go to Anathoth, but is seized as a deserter, beaten and imprisoned many days. Zedekiah then sends for him. Is there word from Jehovah? To be sure there is. Into the hand of the king of Babylon you will be given. 37:17. Angered by Jeremiah's persistent prophecies of doom, the princes throw him into a miry cistern. Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian, a eunuch in the king's house, kindly intercedes for him, so that Jeremiah is rescued from a lingering death, but he remains in detention in the courtyard of the guard. Again Zedekiah calls Jeremiah before him, only to be told, surrender to the king of Babylon or face captivity and destruction of Jerusalem. 38:17 and 18. The siege of Jerusalem lasts 18 months, and then the city is broken through in the 11th year of Zedekiah. The king flees with his army, but is overtaken. His sons and the nobles are slain before his eyes, and he is blinded and carried to Babylon in fetters. The city is burned and laid in ruins, and all except a few poor people are taken into exile to Babylon. By Nebuchadnezzar's order, Jeremiah is released from the courtyard. Before his release, he tells Ebed Melech of Jehovah's promise to deliver him because he trusted in Jehovah. 39:18. Final events at Mizpah and in Egypt. 40 to chapter 44. Jeremiah remains at Mizpah with Gedaliah, whom the Babylonians make governor over the remaining people. After 2 months, Gedaliah is murdered. The people seek Jeremiah's advice, and he relays God's word to them. Jehovah will not uproot you from this land. Do not be afraid because of the king of Babylon. If, however, you go down to Egypt, you will die. Down to Egypt they go, taking Jeremiah and Barak with them. At Tapenhes in Egypt, Jeremiah makes known Jehovah's judgment of doom. The king of Babylon will set his throne to Egypt. It is useless for Israel to worship the gods of Egypt and to resume sacrifice to the queen of the heavens. Have they forgotten how Jehovah desolated Jerusalem for its idolatry? Jehovah will bring calamity on them in the land of Egypt, and they will not return to Judah. As a sign, Jehovah is giving Pharaoh Hophra himself into the hand of his enemies. Barak's lot, chapter 45. Barak is distressed at hearing Jeremiah's repeated prophecies of doom. He is told to think first of Jehovah's work of building up and tearing down instead of seeking great things for himself. 45:5. He will be saved through all the calamity. Jehovah's sword against the nations. 46 to 49. Jeremiah tells of Babylon's victories over Egypt at Carchemish and elsewhere. Though the nations to be exterminated, Jacob will remain but will not go unpunished. The sword of Jehovah will come against the Philistines, against proud Moab and bragging Ammon, against Edom and Damascus, Kedar and Hazor. 47:6. The bow of Elam will be broken. Jehovah's sword against Babylon. 50 to 51 and verse 64. Jehovah speaks concerning Babylon. Tell it among the nations, hide nothing. Babylon has been captured and her gods shamed. Flee out of her. This forged hammer that has smashed the nations of all the earth has herself been broken. O presumptuousness, the oppressor of captive Israel and Judah. Know that Jehovah of armies is their repurchaser. Babylon will become a haunt of howling animals, just as with God's overthrow of Sodom and of Gomorrah. No man will dwell there. 50:31 and 40. Babylon has been a golden cup in Jehovah's hand to make the nations drunk, but suddenly she has fallen, so that she herself is broken. Howl over her, you people. Jehovah has aroused the point of the kings of the Medes to bring her to ruin. The mighty men of Babylon have ceased to fight. They have become like women. The daughter of Babylon will be trodden down solid like a threshing floor. They must sleep an indefinitely lasting sleep, from which they will not wake up. The sea has come up and covered Babylon with a multitude of waves. Get out of the midst of her, O my people, and provide each one his soul with escape from the burning anger of Jehovah. 51:39 and 45. Listen to the outcry, to the great crash from Babylon. Babylon's weapons of war must be shattered, for Jehovah is a God of recompense. Without fail he will repay. Jeremiah commands Sariah, go to Babylon and read aloud these words of the prophecy against Babylon. Then tie a stone to the book and pitch it into the midst of the Euphrates. And you must say, this is how Babylon will sink down and never rise up, because of the calamity that I am bringing in upon her. 51:61 to 64. Record of Jerusalem's fall. 52:1 to 34. This account is almost identical with that previously covered at 2 Kings 24:18 to 20, 25, 1 to 21, and verses 27 to 30.